his mic on.
Well, good morning, Team 10. Hope you enjoyed that short intro video of Team 10 Warriors around the wing getting the job done. Command Chief and I want to thank you, as always, for joining in. Our mission this morning is to, of course, give you an update on things that have happened over the course of the last week and talk a little bit about what might be coming up in the next week, and then we'll spend a little time answering the questions that you submitted. As always, I'll start with an update outside the wire. Everything's looking good in our community. Safer at Home has been going well. We're into our just into our second week, so one incubation period. For that 14-day incubation period, we're one cycle in, and things are still looking pretty good in our community. COVID cases are down, deaths are down, hospitalizations are down, and all the hospitals are in a good place. So right now everything's looking good, but let's not let that be a false sense of security. We got to continue to be vigilant and know that COVID still is in our community. So keep doing what you're doing, all the steps you're taking to keep you and your family safe. But things are going well. Some retail is starting to open back up. Some office space is starting to open back up, and really one of the last things that most people are interested in, right, is restaurants. So one restaurant in Castle Rock sort of was famously in the news this weekend for opening up without permission, and they've since been shut down by the public health department. But so restaurants in our area are being very cautious. They continue to do curbside delivery and pickup, but in talking to local officials, the hope is by Memorial Day, we're starting to kind of get back into restaurants and being able to do that. So I know that that's something that's of great interest to folks. The other bases in Colorado Springs, all similar to us, all looking good, all starting to do some measured approach to kind of reopening some things on their base and bringing some folks back, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Here at USAFA, the health of our force remains strong. Our curve remains flat. You're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. It continues to have an effect. So continuing to worry about hand washing and face covering and making sure that we stay distant from each other when we are physically in the same rooms, and zoning our workforce and all those things that we've been doing. We want to continue to do that. And of course, don't come to work if you're sick. That's also very important. We're still in a public health emergency. We're still in a health protection condition Charlie, so that has not changed. But that said, barring an uptick in the number of cases, we continue to look at ways to kind of reopen and how we can start to kind of phase things back in on the base. So yesterday, Monday, May 11th, we transitioned from OBO, official business only, to allowing full access to the base again. So those that have credentials to enter the base, not just we still remain closed to visitors, but those that have access to the base can return. We transitioned to Phase 2 Alpha. We're calling it Phase 2 Alpha, and eventually there will be a Phase 2 Bravo. Now we think we'll be in Phase 2 Alpha and Bravo for potentially the next, upwards of the next year until a vaccine is available. But as we've transitioned to Phase 2 Alpha with regards to reopening the base, and what does that mean? Phase 1 was again characterized by official business only, very limited services on the base, some very limited medical type service, mostly focused on COVID, type operations, pharmacy services, the commissary and exchange for very limited shopping kind of opportunities. Well, as we transition to phase 2 alpha, a little bit of that is going to start to change. So in 2 alpha, you'll see more establishments opening up. Customers are already starting to see that in the 4th Support Squadron and in the 10th Medical Group, and more openings will follow over the course of the next several weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. And I'll talk about that in a minute as well. And again, in order to keep you safe and your family safe, just like in the community, we're going to do this very slow and in a very stepwise manner. The ultimate goal is not to get back to business as usual. We hear the superintendent talk about that. It's business as required. That's what he calls it. So that which is required to execute the mission, right? A big part of our mission is caring for our families, and some of that is services on base and morale, welfare, recreation type services as well. So as we start to transition, there's still going to be restrictions that we place on those activities. When we get folks back into the workplace physically, and we know that's a source of angst, and we know that's a source of concern. Folks just want to get back. Once we transition back, beware that we're going to still be very vigilant in how we reopen the workplace. We're not just going to spring back to 50% back to work at any one time. We're going to do that very slowly, and we're going to do that in a way that still maintains all the CDC guidelines and all the COVID restrictions. They're going to keep you and your coworkers safe, and ultimately your family safe as well. So we're going to continue to do all the things that we've been doing. By now, of course, you're tracking that the golf course and some shopping opportunities were opened back up last week to folks from 12 o'clock until the closing each day. Also, you're probably tracking, as I mentioned last week, that the fishing lakes and mountain bike trails are open back up to folks to come on base. Just know that if you're going to fish on base, make sure you've got a permit and a license. Call Outdoor Rec, Chuck at Outdoor Rec. He can help you out and make sure that you're doing it correctly. Last week, our medical group started to pivot from largely telehealth. They never closed. They were focused on COVID operations, and they were really focused on telehealth. Now they started to pivot back to some limited amount of in-person type appointments. And so that, in addition to that backlog of some surgeries that have built up over the course of the last couple of months. So if you have a question, concern, and you need some medical advice, please call the appointment line. Use that as a way to get in touch with your provider. You can also go through TRICARE Online through the secure messaging app to get in touch with your provider. But some clinical services have reopened, and if you have any question about that, please, again, contact your provider or go through the appointment line, as I mentioned. Last Wednesday, the defenders have begun to reopen the north gate. You're probably already aware, but they opened the north gate for limited hours in the morning and limited hours in the afternoon. That manpower that we primarily use has shifted up to the cadet area, which has become a restricted area. But they're able to pull back a little bit, give some limited hours both in the morning and the afternoon for commuters, especially as we start to kind of reopen the base back up. But shout out to the defenders. They've done an amazing job. They've kept themselves healthy, and ultimately that has enabled them to continue to defend our base, make our base as safe and secure as it always has been and always will be. So when you come through the gate in the morning, be sure to thank the defenders for all they're doing to keep us safe. We also announced some limited opportunities at some other FSS operations that started yesterday on Monday. So some equestrian center operations, some auto skills center operations, some outdoor rec, and a few others. Those have all been opened back up on a limited basis. So if you have any questions, go to the FSS website, their Facebook page, or at usafasupport.com for kind of the definitive accounting of all the things that are open back up. But know that as we open the base back up for full access on Monday, we also opened up a couple other FSS opportunities. So we're moving ahead cautiously. Commanders have all been given guidance and for how we're going to reopen the work centers. Again, like I said, I know that's a source of concern. Commanders have all been given a 2-page, 11-step checklist to help guide them on how to reopen work centers, offices, etc. And so they're all looking at that now and in the very beginning stages of starting to bring some folks back into the workplace. We can't just go back to automatically 50% of the workplace. We can't do that. It introduces too much risk. We're going to do it slow and we're going to do it smart. And we're going to do it in a way that doesn't risk the gains that we've currently achieved. I want to switch gears just briefly and talk about the mission. General Severia briefed last week on Thursday during his all-call that our institution, our base, we're now preparing for the arrival of the class of 2024 to occur on the 25th of June. That'll be in processing day for the class of 2024. Planning for that is well underway. In fact, many of you are very well involved in that. And so we just thank you for all that you're going to do and all that you have done so far. And you can also expect some number of upper class cadets to begin returning earlier in the month of June. So they can become the cadre for that incoming class. And so you'll start to see cadets come back in. There's also a focus on academics. Some students will be returning to get some classes this summer that are needed towards graduation, and also the airmanship program. It's vitally important that the instructors, all the instructors are cadets, that those instructor pilots continue through the upgrade process so that we don't lose that opportunity for airmanship next year. So you'll see a limited number of them returning to the base as well. So let me just say thanks in advance for your flexibility, for your creativity, and your excellence as we adjust to this new normal, both in the status of the base and then of course in our mission, which is absolutely moving forward. Our nation is counting on us to move that forward. Okay, I think that brings us up to speed on current events. Look forward to answering your questions a little bit later, but I want to turn it over to the Command Chief for his thoughts. Chief.
Awesome. Thanks, sir. Hey, good morning, Team 10. Colonel Hartless and I had an opportunity last week to get out and kind of hand out some trophies. It was good to get out with the Team 10 members. I will tell you, I've been out myself, going to an appointment or wherever around the wing, and I will tell you, I'm getting some questions from some of our junior airmen on just where are we at with what's open, how do I do this, and so I really encourage leaders to communicate. General Severi talks about it during his Thursday virtual all-call about over-communicating. We can't over-communicate enough, even to the lowest level. So leaders, please be sure that you're passing along any message that you get, whether it's the CDC, the golf course, the auto hobby shop. Please make sure that our most junior airmen and civilians are getting that information. And likewise, I encourage my junior airmen, ask the questions, ask the difficult questions to your leaders, so that they can challenge their leadership teams on getting information. And if there's something that we can see we can do better, run that up the chain. Sometimes we don't get to, we're not at the rubber meets the road level, and so we'd like to hear from you if there's some things that we can do. With that, sir, we'll turn it to questions, and I'll go ahead and take the first couple.
Fantastic.
Awesome. So, first question, is there any word on further changes to the PT test since exercise has been limited? So the short answer is no. There was some guidance that came out. If you had a PT test due in the month of March, April, and May, those PT tests in that cycle have been pushed 6 months. So you're looking at September, October, November, respectively. So at this point, as we start to slowly phase open the gyms here on USAFA, active duty that work and live on USAFA are able to use the fitness centers. Again, as we move through this phasing program, the process, we're going to open it up. but as it stands now, there are no projected changes to the PT program. Next question, has there been any talk of lifting OBO and reopening the base to civilians? As Colonel Hartless mentioned, as effective yesterday, we lifted OBO. So anyone who has a valid ID card and is authorized to come on the installation can come on. Not every facility is open yet. We're gonna, as Colonel Hartless mentioned, we're gonna work through that in the phasing program. But if you want to come on and you want to use the trails or hiking, you can do that. Our commissary is open. Our barbershop is still open. So again, we have lifted the OBO, and effective yesterday, we are full access. So that's all I have. Sir.
Okay, Chief. So the last two questions, the next one up was with regard to readiness and health of the force, will the 10th Med Group open up to appointments again? And what is the timeline for active duty independents to see medical care? So I addressed that briefly in my comments again. Please, if you have any questions, concerns, surgeries have begun to resume, and some medical specialty care has resumed, and I'll be specific this time. Some personal appointments, including women's health, allergy and immunization, dermatology, neurology, physical and occupational therapy, and eye care. Right now, dental is still in emergency type care only, but if you have a dental emergency, we can absolutely take care of that as well. So if you have any questions or concerns, please get in touch with your provider through the appointment line or through TRICARE Online and the secure messaging app. Reach out, please don't delay if you have a concern, an urgent type medical concern that you know needs addressing. So please make sure you do that. The last question was, the planes haven't stopped flying since the pandemic started, yet the hospital is closed, and can you open the hospital for medical care? So I addressed the medical piece in the last question. I'll address the flying piece, even though it really wasn't a question, just for situational awareness. Of course, the planes were all grounded initially in the very beginning stages, but the planes that you see flying up around the academy, those are all active duty. Those are instructors, and those instructor pilots are maintaining currency and maintaining their flight credentials to be able to then instruct the cadets when they return, both this summer and in the fall. So if they were to stop flying and lose their currency, we run the risk of our airmanship programs not being viable over the course of the next year. So just like every other Air Force base around the world, planes are flying. It's being done in a safe way. They're following the same protocols that we're following, with zoning their pilots and their maintenance crews and their operations crews, and minimizing risk and taking temperatures and covering their face and doing all the things safely that you're doing in your work centers too. But that's the reason the planes are up. Personally, I love hearing the sound of the planes flying and that air power going. But those are instructor pilots. Those are our active duty pilots that are up flying. So I think that covers all our questions. Chief, any closing comments?
Hey, again, just want to thank each and every one of you for bringing your A game every day. We're gonna bring in the class of 24 at some point. We're gonna graduate the class of 21, and I just continue to bring it each and every day. Awesome.
Chief, thank you, and thanks to all of you for all that you do. Again, stay engaged. Make sure that and there's some there's a lot of personal responsibility in that. If you feel disconnected, just please reach out to a coworker, reach out to a supervisor. Make sure that you're staying connected and engaged, because even though the environment is changed, the opportunity is still there. And not just in your work center, but if there's some helping agency you need, I want to reiterate that they're absolutely available. The same services that were available to you before COVID are still available now. So reach out, whether it's mental health, whether it's SAPR, whether it's any number of wide variety of other helping agencies on the base. They're absolutely still there to help you and help your families. So stay engaged as well, stay connected, and stay healthy. So thanks again. We appreciate all that you do. Thanks for all you do, and we'll see you next week, Team 10.